Brothers Harry and Paul Douglas were complete opposites in nature. They were traveling together when their plane crashed. Both survived, but they landed in separate locations, and one of them lost his memory in the aftermath. Meanwhile, Laura lived in a modest home with her father and younger sister May. From infancy, her father despised her, giving all his love and attention to May. No matter how hard Laura tried to win his approval, he never acknowledged her efforts. While May was pampered with the finest education and luxuries, Laura struggled between school and multiple menial jobs to support herself. One evening, as Laura returned from work, she encountered a destitute woman begging for alms. The passers-by treated the woman cruelly, dismissing her pleas. Laura, moved by compassion, gave her the only money she had, money meant for her household. The woman, overwhelmed with gratitude, handed Laura an old pendant and advised her to always keep it for good fortune. Though reluctant to accept any reward for her kindness, Laura politely took it. Hurrying home afterward, she feared being locked out for returning late. Upon arrival, she found the door shut. No matter how much she knocked, no one answered, forcing her to sleep outside. Her act of kindness bore immediate consequences. In the morning, when the father realized she had failed to bring home money, he punished her by withholding food for 3 days. While May enjoyed a lavish lifestyle and mingled with the elite, Laura lived in hardship and solitude. Whenever she felt overwhelmed by loneliness, she turned to prayer. One afternoon, as Laura and May were returning from the supermarket, they noticed a man lying unconscious by the roadside. Laura wanted to help him, but May objected. However, as they drew nearer, May suddenly changed her mind and insisted on assisting him. They took the man home, where May persuaded their father to let him stay, but she showed no interest in actually caring for him. That responsibility fell solely on Laura, who nursed him day and night. As he began to regain consciousness, May was beside him. Since he had been hearing a voice while unconscious, he assumed it was hers. From that moment, their father made sure Laura stayed away from him. When May inquired about his past, he admitted he couldn't remember anything. Meanwhile, they took extra precautions to keep him from meeting Laura, eventually expelling her from the house. As she gathered her belongings, her father noticed the pendant among them and, disgusted by it, threw it at her along with the rest of her things. With nowhere to turn, Laura decided to settle in a quiet, remote place. She came across an abandoned house and chose to spend the night there. As she slept, a man entered and glared at her in fury. Frightened, she pleaded, "Please don't hurt me." The man, muscular and rugged, softened his expression. "Who are you and what are you doing here?" he demanded. Fear left Laura, unable to respond. "You can stay," he finally said. "We'll talk tomorrow." Meanwhile, May and the father continued to care for the amnesiac stranger, whom they called Bill. May worked tirelessly to gain his favor, pretending to be kind and selfless. One day, while May and her father were away, Bill searched the house, looking for something important. Unable to find it, he carefully put everything back in place to avoid suspicion. Over time, he grew closer to May, pretending to develop feelings for her while secretly searching for the pendant. Eventually, he confessed his attraction to her and proposed. May eagerly accepted, recognizing the ring on his finger as a royal insignia she had seen in a magazine. Bill expressed his gratitude for their hospitality and, upon recovering, requested additional time before leaving. In truth, he was stalling because he needed to find Laura, who had the pendant. Laura, meanwhile, befriended the man who had taken her in. Introducing himself as Ben, he explained that he had no memory of his past. An old man had found him in a river and cared for him until his recent passing. The house belonged to the old man. Moved by his story, Laura vowed to help him regain his memories. Bill, growing desperate, decided to confide in May. He claimed his memory had returned and that he had been searching for a woman who possessed an old pendant given to her by her mother, the Queen. "I was attacked while looking for her," he explained, "but have fallen deeply for you, and I refuse to follow the traditions that bind me to her. I want to find the pendant and give it to you instead." All that May grabbed about the story was the status of Bill. "Are you saying you are a prince?" May asked. "No," he replied. "I'm a king, but this must remain a secret." Thrilled, May never questioned his real name. Meanwhile, after telling her father, he recalled seeing the pendant among Laura's belongings and informed May, who immediately told Bill. They set out to find Laura, May eager to claim her place as queen. Laura and Ben cooked and ate together. They strolled together and told each other stories. As they cleaned up one day, Ben found the pendants in the things of Laura. He froze and couldn't say a word. He started remembering things in his past life. He then asked Laura where she got the pendant from, and Laura said it was given to her by a beggar. "Can you tell me more about this person?" he inquired. She was a beautiful woman in her 50s, fair in complexion, who was wretched and hungry and was begging for money. As she narrated, tears rolled down Ben's eyes. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. The description matched his stepmother. "I couldn't stand how she was being treated, so I helped her," Laura continued. "And that's how she gave me this pendant," she concluded. She turned to Ben only to find him in tears. He tilted his head. "That was my stepmother," he emphasized. But Laura was confused. Ben didn't say any more, and Laura wouldn't ask a word until the next day. The next day, while Laura prepared breakfast, Ben sat behind her. "I remember everything now," he stressed. "I hope you're better now," Laura said as she smiled. "I'm happy at the same time sad," he replied. He then told Laura that in due time he would explain everything to her. Some months ago, Ben came into Laura's town looking for his sister and a wife at the same time. He met Laura a couple of times helping others. He became interested in her and wanted her to be his wife. Nevertheless, he never approached her. When he decided to approach Laura, he saw something familiar on her leg and was shocked. He didn't know what to do, so he went home to declare to the Queen, his stepmother, what he had encountered. Ben had searched almost everywhere for his sister, but to no avail. Mind you, although Ben was the king, he had to fulfill his father's dying wish, which was to find his missing sister before he could marry. This idea came from the Queen, who wanted to continue being the queen for as long as possible. To avoid this, Ben's stepmother disguised herself in order to meet Laura for her to be executed. The pendant she gave her was not a treasure, but rather a signal to make it easier for her to be eliminated, because when she's found, half of the kingdom would go to her. Bill, whose real name was actually Paul, her son, had tried to eliminate her, but was attacked by some thugs who beat him to a pulp the day Laura and May found him. May, her dad, and Bill set out to look for Laura. Some few meters to the destination, Ben spotted them. Immediately, he pulled Laura out of the house and they made a run for their lives. Laura was confused about why they were running away, but Ben told her he would explain everything when they got to a safe place. May, her dad, and Bill got to the house and barged into the room. Because Ben and Laura ran impulsively, they left their things behind. Laura left her pendant and she tried to go back for it, but was stopped by Ben. She did not understand what was going on, so she asked Ben to explain. Ben was hesitant but decided to tell her everything. Bill found the pendant and noticed the person they were looking for was close by, so they rushed out to search for her, unbeknownst to him that Laura was with Ben. With Laura's ears anxious to listen, Ben narrated, "I am a king, and my stepmother, the woman who gave you the pendant, is the queen." "The queen?" Laura questioned. "Yes," Ben replied. "Until I marry, she remains the queen." She nodded without a word. Ben continued, Few weeks ago, I found my missing sister and I told the queen about it. She was very excited to hear that I found her, but I could see from her son's countenance that he was displeased. The queen asked me to bring her home. I didn't approach her immediately after finding out because I didn't want her to panic. On my way, my plane crashed. That's when and how I ended up here. As Laura was about to speak, Ben stopped her. He heard a noise from afar, so he dragged Laura further into the bush. While they watched, Laura saw Mary and her father together with Bill, the injured man they brought home, so she decided to call out to him. But before she could say a word, Ben covered her mouth with his hand. "What are you doing?" he asked. "That's my dad and sister," she replied. "And the man with them?" he asked. "A stranger who I and my sister helped," Laura replied. "That is my half-brother," he said. "I now understand everything," he continued. "What do you understand now?" Laura asked. Ben had to move Laura and himself so they don't find them. They hid very well, and after Bill, May and her dad had searched and couldn't find them. Bill got angry and yelled at May and her dad. "You are a bunch of idiots." All this while they searched, Bill had his guards follow them. "Arrest these people, and if your sister does not show herself before midnight tomorrow, you'll be executed in her place." May and her dad were shocked to see this side of Bill. Laura and Ben, still in hiding, heard everything. Laura was worried about her dad and sis. As soon as they left, Laura told Ben that her dad and sis had not been the best, but she can't sit for them to be executed. She further asked Ben to explain what just went on. "I didn't want to scare you, but Paul isn't a good person. Moreover, his mom, my stepmother, is not a friendly woman. One time, as a child, I witnessed when she gave the pendant to a man. Soon afterwards, the man was exterminated. This was how I got to the conclusion that she wants you dead," Ben elaborated. "But why would she want me dead? I don't know her from anywhere, or is there something that I'm missing?" she inquired. "Please be patient and listen to me," Ben said. "It is our custom that after I take over the throne, I get married. But before marrying, I had to fulfill my father's last wish. So I took it upon myself to search for my missing sister and my queen. I came to a town and I found a woman who I almost fell for, but she turned out to be my sister, so kind and beautiful. I went back and told my stepmom about her, thinking she had my back, but I got to know she never cared for me. She had always known where to find my sister, because she was the one who took her away from the palace and abandoned her in another town when she was a baby. Paul revealed everything to me before he attacked and tried to kill me in the plane. The plane crashed, and that's how I found myself here." "But what has that got to do with your stepmother trying to kill me?" Laura questioned. "Because you are the woman I fell for," Ben replied. Laura sat and stared in shock while she tried to put the pieces together. She realized that she was the princess he found. Later that day, Ben devised a plan which would take Laura to the kingdom to rescue her family. Upon all her family dead to her, she still loved them, so she agreed to go. Ben then disguised himself and got into the kingdom. He met few of his trusted men who would do anything for him. He entrusted them with the task of convincing the other guards to favor him. Once Laura appeared to Paul, he asked one of his guards to tie her up. Moreover, he would not let her family go, but tie them up also. He threw them in jail to await the execution 2 days later. Paul, knowing he had killed Ben, decided to take the throne by force. 2 days came, and Paul, his mother and girlfriend, sat to watch the execution. He ordered the guards to begin with the process, but none was willing. Enraged, the queen grabbed the sword and threatened them, only for everyone to kneel in reverence. Stunned, Paul turned to see Harry standing behind him, alive, their treachery exposed. Paul and the queen were arrested. Harry then revealed Laura's identity. "But how do you know I'm your sister?" she asked. "The scar on your leg," he replied. May and her father were banished. But Laura, compassionate as ever, pleaded for mercy. Her father, ashamed, confessed that his resentment stemmed from believing his late wife had loved Laura more. Both he and May apologized. Laura forgave them. May, still clinging to her ambition, tried to seduce Ben, but he rejected her, unwilling to marry someone who had wronged his sister. Instead, he remained steadfast in finding a queen worthy of both him and the crown. The moral lesson of the story: compassion brings unexpected rewards. Laura's selflessness and kindness, despite being treated unfairly, ultimately led to her discovering her true identity and rightful place as a princess. Greed and deception lead to ruin. May, her father, and Paul sought power through lies and manipulation, but their schemes collapsed, leading to their downfall. True nobility is in character, not birth. Despite being raised in hardship, Laura displayed the qualities of a true leader: kindness, perseverance, and forgiveness, proving that royalty is not just about lineage, but about the heart. Forgiveness is a strength, not a weakness. Despite years of mistreatment, Laura forgave her father and sister, showing that forgiveness brings peace, whereas revenge leads to more suffering. Evil cannot triumph over good forever. Paul and his mother's wickedness lasted for a time, but ultimately, justice prevailed when Ben, whose real name was Harry, returned to claim his throne and expose their treachery. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more.